What if the silence you've been trying to understand isn't confusion at all? What if, at this very moment, someone is making one of the biggest decisions of their life, and that decision revolves around you? Because what they're deciding isn't small. It's not about sending a message, making a call, or having a simple conversation. They're deciding whether to move closer to you or walk away from everything they've been feeling. And the signs are already there if you know where to look. If this message resonates with your situation, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments. Have you ever felt that someone was deciding your place in their life without telling you? Your story might help someone else understand their own journey. There are moments in life when the most important events are not visible. No announcement is made, no conversation takes place, no clear signal appears. Yet beneath the surface, something significant is already unfolding. The hidden decision forming within another person often begins long before any action is taken. While you continue with your daily routine, someone may be privately questioning their feelings, reassessing their priorities, and examining the role you have come to play in their life. What appears to be ordinary silence can actually be a period of intense inner reflection. People rarely arrive at major emotional decisions overnight. The mind moves through layers of uncertainty, hope, fear, and curiosity. They revisit memories, replay conversations, and search for meaning in moments that once seemed insignificant. Every interaction becomes part of a larger picture they are trying to understand. They may wonder whether they should move closer, reveal their true feelings, create distance, or take a risk that could change everything. Because these thoughts remain hidden, the outside world often sees no evidence of what is happening. This process can make a person behave differently. They may become quieter, more observant, or unexpectedly distant. Not because they have stopped caring, but because they are trying to understand the depth of what they feel. The decision is already taking shape within them, growing stronger with every reflection, every realization, and every moment they can no longer ignore your impact on their life. Silence is often misunderstood. Most people assume that when someone becomes quiet, distant, or less expressive, it means they have lost interest or no longer care. Yet some of the deepest emotional processes happen in complete silence. When a person is facing an important decision about someone who matters to them, they frequently withdraw into their own thoughts. They stop speaking not because they have reached a conclusion, but because they are trying to understand emotions that feel too complex to express. A person who is evaluating a meaningful connection often enters a period of observation. Instead of reacting impulsively, they begin paying attention to details. They watch how they feel when they see your name, hear your voice, or think about the future. They notice what they miss when you are absent and what changes inside them when you are present. These observations create a private conversation within their mind, one that no one else can see. This internal evaluation can make their behavior appear confusing. One day they seem engaged and interested. The next day they become distant and difficult to read. The inconsistency is often a sign of emotional conflict rather than indifference. Part of them may want certainty, while another part fears vulnerability. They are measuring possibilities, weighing consequences, and trying to determine whether the connection is worth the risks that come with opening their heart. The silence itself becomes evidence of the importance of the decision. Casual choices are made quickly. Meaningful choices demand reflection, patience, and emotional honesty. Beneath that quiet exterior, thoughts continue moving, feelings continue growing, and conclusions continue forming. A major decision often begins the moment someone's perception changes. Before that shift occurs, they may see you as just another person in their life, someone familiar but not deeply significant. Then something happens. It may be a conversation, a moment of unexpected honesty, a display of strength during hardship, or simply the gradual realization that your presence affects them more than they ever expected. Suddenly, they begin seeing you through a different lens, and everything they once assumed starts to change. Human beings do not make life-altering choices based solely on facts. They make them based on meaning. When perception changes, meaning changes. The person begins noticing qualities they previously overlooked. They recognize emotional depth where they once saw simplicity. They discover value where they once saw ordinary familiarity. This new awareness creates a powerful internal shift that cannot easily be reversed. As their perception evolves, they start questioning old beliefs and expectations. They may compare their current feelings with what they thought they wanted in the past. They may realize that someone they once considered predictable has become deeply important to their future. This realization can be both exciting and unsettling, because it forces them to confront emotions they were not prepared to face. The change in perception becomes the foundation of every decision that follows. Once a person truly sees someone differently, they cannot return to complete emotional neutrality. Their thoughts begin returning to that person more often, their curiosity grows stronger, their attention becomes more focused. What once felt ordinary now carries emotional weight, creating the conditions for a decision that has the power to transform the direction of their life. Emotional conflict is one of the strongest signs that a major decision is approaching. When a person stands at the edge of a meaningful choice, they rarely feel complete certainty. Instead, they experience a struggle between opposing forces within themselves. One part of them is pulled toward what they desire, while another part is held back by fear, doubt, or uncertainty. This internal tension can become so powerful that it affects their thoughts, behavior, and ability to act. The heart may be urging them forward, encouraging them to embrace what they feel, while the mind continuously presents reasons to hesitate. They may worry about rejection, disappointment, vulnerability, or the possibility of change. Even when they recognize the value of a connection, fear can make them question whether taking the next step is the right decision. As a result, they remain suspended between action and inaction, wanting clarity but unable to find it immediately. This conflict often creates confusing signals. One moment they seem ready to move closer, showing warmth, attention, and genuine interest. The next moment they pull away, becoming distant or difficult to understand. Their behavior reflects the battle taking place beneath the surface. They are not simply deciding what to do, they are deciding who they are willing to become if they follow their feelings. The greater the emotional significance of the decision, the stronger this inner struggle tends to be. Small choices require little reflection, but choices that have the potential to reshape a person's future demand deep consideration. Every fear, hope, memory, and expectation becomes part of the process as they search for the courage to choose a direction. One of the most powerful forces behind a major decision is the fear of loss. People can ignore their feelings for a surprisingly long time when they believe there will always be another opportunity. They convince themselves that there is no rush, that tomorrow will look the same as today, and that important connections can simply wait. But the moment they sense that someone could truly move on, change direction, or disappear from their life, everything begins to feel different. What was once easy to postpone suddenly feels urgent. The fear of loss has a unique way of exposing hidden truths. It strips away excuses and forces a person to confront what genuinely matters. Feelings that were once pushed aside become impossible to ignore. Questions they avoided begin demanding answers. They start imagining a future in which you are no longer part of their daily thoughts, conversations, or experiences. That possibility creates an emotional impact far stronger than they expected. Many people do not fully understand the value of a connection until they feel it slipping beyond their reach. The mind naturally compares what exists today with what could be gone tomorrow. This comparison often brings clarity. They begin recognizing how much your presence has influenced their emotions, routines, and sense of possibility. Moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly gain meaning because they realize those moments may not always be available. As this awareness grows, hesitation becomes more difficult to maintain. The fear of losing something meaningful often becomes stronger than the fear of taking action. What once felt safe to avoid now feels too important to risk, pushing them closer toward a decision they can no longer delay. Sometimes the reason someone begins making a serious decision about you has very little to do with anything you said directly. Instead, it comes from the growth they have witnessed in you. Growth changes the energy of a person. It changes the way they carry themselves, the choices they make, the boundaries they establish, and the confidence they project. Even when these changes happen gradually, the people around them notice. And for someone who has been watching you, your evolution may have forced them to reconsider everything they once believed about you. Many relationships become comfortable because people assume they already know who someone is. They place that person into a familiar category and stop paying attention to deeper possibilities. But when genuine growth occurs, those assumptions begin to break apart. Suddenly, they see qualities that were not visible before. They recognize strength where they once saw uncertainty. They notice independence where they once expected dependence. They discover emotional maturity, resilience, or self-respect that challenges their previous perception. This can be a deeply unsettling experience because growth often changes the balance of a relationship. A person who once felt completely certain about their position in your life may realize that you no longer need the same validation, attention, or approval. They begin to understand that you are moving forward, whether they decide to come along or not. That realization creates pressure to reevaluate their own feelings and intentions. Your growth becomes a mirror, reflecting what they have avoided within themselves. As they watch you transform, they are forced to ask difficult questions about their own choices, fears, and desires. What began as simple observation slowly turns into a serious internal decision about where they truly stand in relation to you. What makes this decision so profound is that it is not really about you alone. It is about what your presence awakens within another person. Certain people enter our lives and trigger emotions, thoughts, and realizations that have remained dormant for years. They bring hidden desires to the surface, expose unresolved fears, and challenge the comfortable stories we tell ourselves about who we are. When this happens, the connection becomes much larger than attraction, admiration, or simple curiosity. It becomes a confrontation with the deeper parts of the self. Many people believe they are deciding whether they want someone in their life, when in reality, they are deciding whether they are ready to face what that person represents. You may symbolize growth, vulnerability, change, commitment, or emotional honesty. These are not small things. They require courage because accepting them often means leaving behind familiar patterns that once felt safe. The person is not only evaluating the connection, they are evaluating their readiness for transformation. This is why powerful connections can create such intense internal conflict. A person may feel drawn toward you while simultaneously resisting the emotions you awaken. They may admire the qualities they see in you while feeling challenged by what those qualities reveal about themselves. Every interaction becomes a reminder of possibilities they can no longer ignore. The decision gradually becomes less about whether they care and more about whether they are willing to embrace the version of themselves that emerges in your presence. Deep down, they sense that choosing you may also mean choosing growth, truth, and a future different from the one they originally imagined, a realization that carries both excitement and fear. Every meaningful relationship eventually reaches a crossroads where remaining the same is no longer possible. For a time, people can exist in uncertainty, avoiding difficult questions and postponing important choices. They can stay in the space between action and inaction, telling themselves that there is still time to decide. Yet every genuine connection continues to evolve beneath the surface. Emotions deepen, circumstances change, and the pressure for clarity grows stronger. Eventually, a moment arrives when the relationship demands a direction. This psychological crossroads is not created by external events alone. It emerges from the accumulation of countless thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Small moments that seemed insignificant begin to form a larger pattern. Conversations gain new meaning, silences become more noticeable. The emotional weight of the connection becomes impossible to dismiss. What once felt uncertain now requires acknowledgement. At this stage, a person often realizes that avoiding a decision is itself a decision. Remaining passive no longer protects them from consequences. If they continue doing nothing, they risk losing opportunities, creating regret, or allowing the connection to drift into the past. This awareness forces them to confront what they truly want, rather than what feels most comfortable. Crossroads are powerful because they reveal character. They expose fears, hopes, strengths, and limitations that might otherwise remain hidden. The person must decide whether to move forward with honesty, retreat into familiarity, or accept that the relationship has reached its natural conclusion. Whatever choice they make, they understand that the future cannot look exactly like the past. Something must change, and deep within themselves, they already know it. As we reach the end of this journey, remember one powerful truth. The biggest decisions are rarely made in public. They are made in the quiet corners of the mind, where fear meets desire, where doubt meets hope, and where the future begins to take shape long before anyone else can see it. If someone is making a major decision about you, it is because your presence has touched something meaningful within them. You have become part of a question they can no longer ignore, and a possibility they can no longer dismiss. But here is what matters most. Their decision is ultimately their responsibility, not yours. You cannot force clarity, accelerate timing, or control the path they choose. What you can do is continue becoming the strongest, most authentic version of yourself. Real power comes from standing confidently in your own truth, rather than waiting for someone else's choice to define your worth. If this person chooses to move closer, it will be because they found the courage to embrace what they truly feel. If they choose to walk away, it will reveal where they are in their own journey of growth and self-understanding. Either way, the outcome does not diminish your value. Sometimes life changes in a single conversation. Sometimes it changes in a single decision. And somewhere between silence and action, between uncertainty and commitment, a choice is being formed. The only question remaining is whether they are ready to step into the future that has been calling them all along.